So we talk about hacking the next generation and the cyber frontier. So with that, obviously, has to come a little bit of Star Trek, kind of the Picard face palm. Yeah, it's a little corny. We get it. And we use the word cyber, so Riker's kind of getting a little upset about that. But I promise you there won't be any more of the Star Trek kind of meme or references. It's really just to kind of get that out of the way. But oops, almost forgot something. So my generation of techie people, we kind of remember in order to do something with computers, it had certain minimum requirements. Those requirements were things like reading. Those skills also included typing, patience, and a lot of that's changed specifically because of things like mobility and the consumerization of IT. There's a whole nother generation now who don't have that requirement at all.
492. Okay. And 1492.
Is it okay to share your password with people? I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay to share your password with people. So that's Benny the Destroyer. He got that nickname by giving mommy's iPhone a bath. He thought it needed to be washed, and that was a $279 lesson for mommy. But Benny's also destroyed many other things in the house and continues to do so. But a couple years ago, he barely spoke, just very few words. And when he got a tablet and started using it and then started verbalizing his passcode, it took about a good year and some few extra months before we kind of like retrained him on why that's really not a good idea, even though, 1492, big deal. There's nothing on there. It's a kid's tablet. It's, YouTube for kids and some games and stuff. But there is really a much deeper problem where parents are sharing their mobile devices with their kids, and it could be a corporate-owned device, or even if it's a BYOD-enabled device. There are many types of sensitive data on that device, whether it's in email, documents, what have you, applications. And they hand it off to their kids because it's become the electronic babysitter. And because of that low bar to entry for kids to be able to use these devices, we created Hack for Kids. And a part of that, it's really kind of an incentive-based program to teach kids cybersecurity, internet safety and best practices, as well as STEM. But part of like when I grew up and I played Dungeons and Dragons, right on, I would spend hours memorizing the tables and the matrices because it made the gameplay that much better. If you had to kind of pause and look things up, it slowed the game down and made it less interesting and less exciting. So there was an incentive. And that's what we do at Hack for Kids, is we provide some kind of incentive for them to want to learn really complex technology. I mean, mobile devices are pretty easy to use, but behind it is a lot of complexity. And I'll explain a bit more about how we're hacking the next generation through Hack for Kids. But before, when did we come up with this idea to create Hack for Kids? So back in early 2013, I saw a tweet by some folks you see there. I don't know if it's getting washed out by the light. But they wanted to have a kids-based conference in Chicago. I happened to see that, and I was like, this is awesome. Because since then, I published a book for kids. I've been active with my kids, teaching them technology and scouting. And it seemed like this was my calling. Inside of me was this kind of ember, a spark, that was just kind of smoldering. And this kind of started to fan it a little bit. And I contacted them and said, hey, I'd love to help out in any way. It was a really early stage, wanted to jump in. I didn't want to do any kind of leadership or anything. I just wanted to be there to help. And they were like, sure. So I was thrilled. So now that ember is smoldering and it's starting to get bigger and hotter. And then the board at ThoughtCon decided they didn't want to do a kids event, which was perfectly fine because it was being really kind of run by some people from the ThoughtCom board. And then all of that like excitement, because we already had a couple calls, we were starting to plan, all went away. And then it's kind of like, glum hit. And while just kind of, doing my day-to-day stuff, in 2014, we launched our first Hack for Kids. Thought about it, what to do, how to do it, who to do it with. Never ran a conference before. I've done other types of organizational activities, but never actually ran a conference and not knowing what's involved with that. So worked with some other folks, and we had a good showing, about 40 kids, total of about, say 106 people, including parents, the kids, volunteers, everyone. You could see here, this is just kind of some opening comments, and one of the staff is really busy on his mobile device, which really kind of tells you the era that we live in, because mobility is everything nowadays. I work for a mobile company, so I feel it personally on a constant basis. But we have a pretty broad age range. We have kids that we first were 8 to 17, because we wanted to give high school students an opportunity to learn more about technology. They were probably doing it already, but they might want to have done something with ethical hacking. And we wanted to make that available to them. But also, Benny is there, and he saw this homemade hack of some guy took a galvanized steel garbage can, and he turned it into a robot. Put like some Arduino. Can you guys see that? Okay. Arduino controllers. And Benny looked at this thing. It was bigger than him, but his incentive, I don't know if you could see it on the left, is a clear bucket of candy. So that helped Benny overcome his fears through the incentive of something sweet. But we now changed it to 7 to 17 because we found out that some kids who were being homeschooled actually were kind of going into 3rd grade. They sometimes are a little bit more ahead of the public school systems or private school systems, and we wanted to open it up to them. But we also do things with like, IEEE. These are snap circuits. I don't know if you're familiar with them. They're a lot of fun. I'll tell you more about them in a bit. We also did some stuff with 3D printing last year, and this one actually was kind of cool. A lot of the ideas, I wish I could take credit for it, is really coming from my kids and my kids' friends. One of them, we got an Arduino, showed him the blinky light, and my son was like, well, that's kind of cool, blink. Can you make it blink Morse code? He's right there, raising the bar on Dad. Yeah, sure. So I took him, we sat through it, started to create different types of functions for dot and dash, and then the alphabet, making it easier to read. And he was learning the whole, like, how basic programming works, which he's never really been exposed to before. And that kind of got him excited. And then we started to put messages, and it was very clear to read, SOS or whatever. And one of his friends said, well, can we do a scavenger hunt? So what we did is we married those two ideas of the Arduino blinking Morse code, but it was also a part of a scavenger hunt. So we made some little hack 9-volt battery connectors for the Arduinos, put them in some 3D printed cases, and then kind of hit them throughout the event, and then had to go find, the blinking light, and then we had a sheet, and they had a scavenger hunt, which they had a great time doing. They were running all over the place, taking selfies with the different things that we had hidden in the venue, which they got from the Arduinos. So those are some kind of fun things. I mean, who here knows Morse code? Like, knows it, not knows of it. Yeah, like I know about 5 or 6 letters. Right, it's kind of lost skill. Unless you've been in the military and they kind of banged it into you and it's there. Most people don't know it. And most of the kids nowadays don't know of it, which is the reason why we introduced it. This one here is pretty fun. One of our volunteers on one of our calls, we're just trying to, again, brainstorm for some other ideas. And she said, well, I like to go to Goodwill and get really inexpensive old tech, give it to her son, and just have him take it apart. Because he started taking apart things in their house. So before he got to the microwave, she thought it would be a good idea to, here's a router, here's a telephone, here's a remote control, here's an old radio. And it's a low-cost investment, but the education's very high because now they're seeing not this little piece of magic electronics that just kind of does something, but they're seeing how it's put together inside. And the magic kind of goes away, but the curiosity level rises up very high. So here, one of the Tyros, which is what we call the kids that attend a Hack for Kids event, she's taking apart some tech. It looks like an old router or something like that. Kinda, I'm not too sure. But yeah, they love it. They love taking the tech apart. An idea we all thought would be okay. We didn't know how it was going to be received. It's one of our most popular activities. So now, what exactly is the entity of Hack for Kids? So you kind of understand, kind of how we came about. But what is it? It is a public charity. It's a 501c3 charity registered with the IRS. So, putting the event together, it's a big challenge, but it takes funds. So, if you feel compelled, you're like, I just got this $1,000 bonus check from work. I just don't know what to do with it. I'm going to donate it to Hack for Kids. We appreciate that. Thank you. But reality is, whatever you want to donate, that's fine. And we work with other organizations that are very, very helpful, like even the folks here at ConVerge and B-Sides Detroit, hugely helpful in providing venue and donating the space and other things in order for us to be able to do this. And we work with other organizations as a partnership. And it's easier to do that as a charity. And it also kind of projects our intent. We're not looking to make money and commercialize or capitalize on this stuff. We really are just promoting education. That's really what we're about. We've partnered with other events like Circle CityCon. If you were in Indianapolis about a month ago, we had a village there, kind of like what we're going to do here tomorrow. So they're a big partner of ours. We're also doing a second one across the pond in Belgium with the folks from BrewCon, which is actually pretty cool. And they've really adopted a model we're looking for where we go in, we educate them, we enable them, let them know kind of what would work and what wouldn't work and how to work with the kids. And then they kind of took the effort and initiated, or they are already have a long list of different things they want to do. Some of them a little far reaching, but others look really possible. And we love that because the only way to scale this is for other folks that are experienced organizers to want to be able to have an event like this with their event. And actually that kind of that symbiotic relationship between an established event and a Hack for Kids village or another day dedicated has been a really successful model. Kind of Chicago is the only one where we actually have just a day where we do Hack for Kids. Everything else has been a partnership, including GERCON. I'm pointing to Chris. If you have not been to GERCON, you really should be going to GERCON. Not just because you're in the room. It's probably one of the events that I think I can say I've been to every single one and I've never missed a single GERCON. A lot goes on there. But we've partnered, and I think I actually nagged you for a couple of years through some emails about when you're going to do a kids event, even before we had Hack for Kids. And then he finally he gave in, and we had our first one last year, and it was very successful. He gave us plenty of space, actually almost 50% larger than the room we're in now, and we had a lot going on. And even people that are speaking here, and people that are volunteering here, and people that are organizing were helping us. So you can see it's this big community pulling together because we all believe in the mission. So definitely tomorrow we're doing Hack for Kids at ConVerge and / B-Sides Detroit. By now, I don't know if you're kind of feeling that ember inside of you and you're like, hey, I want to do one of these too. Or, hey, I know someone that runs an event in another city. Maybe they can do one. Well, we are looking for people who kind of have that ember in them. There's a Google form. Don't bother writing it down. This Prezi is available online. You can just click on the link from there. But fill out the form, get in touch with us, and we can figure something out. There's a lot of people that come up to us and say, we want to do an event in their city. Fine, when? We'll get back to you. And that kind of ends the conversation, unfortunately. So kind of having that information in advance. When do you want to do it? Where do you want to do it? What other event do we want to do it with in conjunction on the same day or another day is very helpful information up front. I forgot to tell the joke before the punchline. We take security at Hack for Kids very seriously. There's one of my kids playing a video game. And I put a little joke behind it, but it actually is one of the things that we take very, very seriously, but we do a fairly good job of kind of just integrating it and not making it so obvious. It's not like you're walking through TSA and make whatever jokes you want. It's an obvious thing. You're going through a metal detector. But because of the nature of kids and risk and all the risk that comes with, creeps out there, my kids go. I want to make sure my kids are safe. I know Chris's kids go. I want to make sure his kids and everybody else's kids are safe. So some of the things that we've adopted, because I don't know if you know the term scouter, it means an adult leader in the Boy Scouts of America program. I'm a scouter now for about 5 years, so I adopted some of the practices from the BSA, and one of them is we never have one adult in the room with one or more kids. There's always going to be at least 2 adults. And there's a variety of reasons. It's not just to protect the kids, it's to protect the adults, right? We don't want anyone ever to have to defend their character. Even, they're there to help, and we want to make sure everybody has a good time and everybody learns. So we don't take volunteers off the street either. So you come up to me after this and you're like, hey, I want to volunteer. I get emails from people, I want to volunteer. And even some people in this room might know. They've asked me, I'm like, who do you know? How can I vet you? Do you do something with scouting? Because I know I have to do training with them every 2 years. It's a requirement. I've done stuff with ISC Squared, who's a partner of ours, and they do background checks, especially for the Safe and Secure Online presentation. There's other things like with athletics. If you're a coach and you're, say, a soccer coach, they make you go through training. They do background checks. If I can get a letter or something that states you're safe to be around kids, we still accept that with a grain of salt. Just I have a lack of trusting nature. But if you know somebody on the board of directors and you've known them more than like, hey, I met Bob at this conference and I see Bob every year for the past 3 years. Bob's a good guy. That's not enough. You need to know the person. We also take photography very, very seriously. I'm sorry with the mic, I keep moving and kind of keeps moving the audio, but what I mean by that is we state before the event, like during the opening comments, if you want to take a picture of your tyro and there's another tyro in the frame, politely ask them if they can, either you wait or you ask them to, hey, can you scoot over for a second? I want to take a picture of my kid. And keep them out of it, and especially if you're going to post it to social media. We don't want people posting other people's kids online because maybe that parent doesn't want their kid's photo online, or only they can do it. Here, one of our photographers that were on staff, they're instructed that if they take a picture that's front-facing, only I keep control of those. Anything that gets public, like this, would be something that's from like a side shot or the back where you can't really identify. Like, I don't know who this is. I honestly don't know this kid. But he's doing something there. He's playing with some snap circuits. He's shooting a propeller into the air. The Arduino scavenger hunt box is there. He might have been working with that. That's all we know. But the picture tells you a lot about what we do, but no identity is being revealed. And the photography even extends into the restroom too. We tell people, you know what? Put your phone away. Take care of your business. Don't take it out when you're in the restroom. Male or female, doesn't matter. And if a kid's in there by themselves, turn around and leave, wait for them to exit. We always want that 2-to-1 ratio, 2 adults to 1 kid. And even if you're on your phone just like, I'm having an awesome time at Hack for Kids, and you're tweeting it out, and you don't need to do that in the restroom. Somebody else might think you're doing something that you're not. And again, you have to defend your character, we have to confiscate your phone, make sure we delete the pictures, and even then forensically it could be recovered. But all of that, we don't want to do that. We want people to have fun. Here's another example, like there's a picture of a tyro, gender, I don't know. I actually do know this kid. Gender is unknown. So these are the kind of photography that we use. All you see is there's like a big hairy arm, so I'm assuming that's the tyro's dad, and they're putting something together, they're building something. Last year, I'll get to this in a minute. Last year we won a new badge. First year we had paper badges, kind of first year, try to figure it all out, quick and easy. Last year, I think it was about 370 some odd hours of 3D printing in my bedroom while trying to produce a couple hundred, I think I produced like 250 badges of different colors. So yeah, a lot of noise at night. Each badge took about 50 minutes to print, 58 minutes to print, excuse me. Yeah. They were not like 90% solid, but they were pretty solid because we wanted to make sure that they were durable, especially with the clip. We didn't want the tops to break off. And they were reasonably thick. I mean, they were probably about that big. And we made different ones for different locations. So when we went to GurCon, there was one that said GurCon. When we were at BrewCon, it said BrewCon. So we tried to really customize them, spent a lot of time doing this. You could see the gliders on there. And then this other symbol, like the arrow pointing down, actually, we created a symbol called the Tyro symbol for them. So this way, like the badge, it was pointing down, but when they held it up, it was facing the proper direction for them to be able to see it when they pick it up. And what the Tyro symbol is that arrow is, if you've ever seen the Nordic runes, there's one symbol, it's like an arrow, it's called the Tyr, T-Y-R, and the circle completes the word Tyro, but the circle also, and the Tyr symbol is like strength and warrior, and then the circle is representing the unity of the hacker community. Don't laugh, Chris. And and the hackers' never-ending like thirst or quest for knowledge. Like once we figure something out, and you're like, oh, cool, I changed it. Like we keep changing it, pushing it further. We don't stop. So that's their symbol. Why and where? Hack for Kids. So why? There are other events out there. This was not a unique idea. There are other great events out there, I should say, like Roots Asylum, formerly known as DEF CON Kids. And there's also, there was Hack Kid out of San Jose. And what they both have in common is they were very West Coast based. I live in Chicago. I'm originally from the East Coast, but I've also met a lot of friends in the InfoSec community in the northern Midwest. As you can see, it's a pretty big community. There's a lot of folks. And it's also a pretty small community. A lot of people know each other. And because of that, we were able to have events in places like Chicago and Grand Rapids and now Detroit and Indianapolis. So we're really kind of looking at this a bit more globally, at least Northern Hemisphere. And even BrewCon, but now if you could see Sector, we got the green light on going to Canada, which is actually pretty cool because I know some people over there and have been very excited about or very eager to go to Canada to do a Hack for Kids, and now we're doing it in conjunction with B-Sides Toronto and Sector, which is phenomenal. We're hoping that's going to be a really nice, huge event, but we want to go to other places. We want to do more, but it's hard to scale. So we need to find the right people in the right places to do this. We want to get further south in this country. We've spoken to people in Atlanta and Dallas and Raleigh. And again, it doesn't always pan out. It takes a time investment on both sides. They want to do it, but they got to also get involved and help. So, kind of move on. So some of the things that we do. We have 3 types of activities. We have a speaker track, we have activity stations, and we have workshops. Now, activity stations are really designed to be 15 to 20 minutes or more if they want to be there longer, but to teach them something they haven't done before, give them some exercises, give them some challenges, and if they've done it before, kind of take it to the next level, especially with some of the older Tyros. But if it's not something of their interest, like we did a Python for Kids activity station, and they might go in there, or their parents might kind of push them in there in that conference room, and now they're like, oh, coding is really not for me. I like hardware. So this year we kind of came up with a hardware badge, which is actually pretty cool. It's a hardware. It was pre-assembled, but it's fully hackable. And inside of it is like an AT-Tiny, which they could treat it like an Arduino with the breakout pins and drop the sketch on there and run it, which is actually very cool. And some of them, with the help of the badge manufacturer, was able to chain the badges or change some of the stuff that, like the speed of the encoded message, because each one of them has a different, should I say, each one of a different color has a different encoded message on it. So it was actually pretty fun, and you can see they're pretty badass. And you could even, like, adults are like, the parents got one too. They were like loving it, and they can go back home, because a lot of the parents that come to these events are IT or InfoSec people. And there are a few accountants and stay-at-home moms and the whatnot, but the tech people were just like salivating, because this is just a fun thing you can't go and pick up at Best Buy or buy anywhere else. It's very, very custom. But yeah, we did that. I meant to talk about that a little bit when we were talking about the badge. But the workshops, so, you know, the activity, so I went to the Python for Kids workshop. Some of the kids loved it. Some of the kids just did a little bit and moved on. So, and that's kind of really what we do. We had one kid sit there all day in Indianapolis doing crypto challenges. He never did crypto before in his life. He discovered how to like decode binary and base 64 and root 13. And then we even had some other ones with like, you know, Arabesh. Raise your hand if you know what Arabesh is. It's okay. All right. It's the language of Star Wars. So in the very first Star Wars movie, yes, I know. I'm a geek. You should know that. I'm sorry, sir. Yeah, you have to leave. So in the very first Star Wars movie, a little history, you could see on like their display in the X-Wing, just some characters that came up. That was completely meaningless. It was all random. And then somebody actually created the Arabesh language that could be converted to like ASCII. And then somebody has a website where you can type in English and it converts it to Arabesh. So we had a challenge that was Arabesh. And the kid looked at it and goes, that's from Star Wars. And he kind of worked on it from there. Spent the entire day just working on all these challenges. And that's great. And his dad, you know, he's like, oh yeah, my son had fun and everything. I wrote this long email on how he impressed us because he found something inside of himself that he didn't know he had. And it was a passion for mathematics or more advanced mathematics. And, you know, he didn't really communicate. Like, how many of you folks out there have kids that tell you everything about what they've done and communicate? Yeah, I had a really great time today and we did all this stuff with advanced math. No, you ask your kids, what did you do today in school? Nothing. And that's the end of the conversation unless you push them a little harder. And, you know, his dad was very happy to get that kind of feedback. And now he knows that's something that he should be able to support with his son. And when he came to Chicago, we had more challenges for him. And he's come back, he's been to at least 3 Hack for Kids now, and he's about 15. He loves it. So workshops are kind of like an extended version of that. So I can give you a Raspberry Pi. I could show you how to log on to it. I can give you a Python script. I can make you turn a servo motor. But when you're done looking at that and you really have no other interest, you kind of move on. But if you have an interest, what we've done is like a whole unboxing workshop for, I think it was about 3 hours on Raspberry Pi, from taking it apart, no HDMI monitor, no USB keyboard. You had to figure out what your IP address was so you can XRDP onto the device, and the kids had to get into a router. And we take this for granted, but they've never done it before. And now they're like, wow, this is pretty cool. And they were on there and they did all that stuff I just described. In this workshop, the instructor was teaching them web application pen testing. But we called it Web Hacking Exposed, the Bounty Hunter Edition. Threw up a copy of Boba Fett, sold out. There was no more space in that workshop. It's how you package it. We have other things like spy math. But if we say, hey, you want to do some advanced mathematics on cryptography, you're not going to have anyone sit down at the table. But you put a little sign on the wall that says spy math. They're there all day. So that's the workshop. So the workshops are really more like 2 to 3 hours, sometimes 4. And we always do a safe and secure online presentation because that's where we're teaching anti-cyberbullying, ethics, and internet safety and best practices. All the other stuff, like, you know, there's some cybersecurity in it, but everything else we're doing is really around STEM and ethical hacking. So we make sure that this is a part of the program. Now, the speaking talks, or the speaking track, not every location has one. It's really kind of sometimes difficult if you're running like an adult conference to fill a speaking track with quality speakers. When it's kids, we want a lot of kids to speak. We don't have any age discrimination. You know, it doesn't have to be kids. We do encourage kids. We have a mentor program. But you know, anyone that wants to speak on something, but it has to be age appropriate. We had somebody talk about biohacking in Chicago, but she came in there and she had a nice display. She had phosphorescent bacteria, and then when she kind of covered it in a black box, it was like hack for kids and bacteria, which was actually kind of cool. It didn't smell very good in there, but it was actually pretty cool. Did not smell good at all. But that's kind of what we're talking about. So if you want to talk about something really advanced and interesting like that, but you can bring it down to the level, we're happy to have you there as a speaker. Last year, This is Ruben Paul. I don't know if you heard of him. He's actually been pretty active as a keynote speaker at the age of 9 and the CEO of his own company. And I think he's now going into 4th grade, maybe 5th grade. He spoke there. He was our first keynote, and we were very happy to have him. And what he really talked about during that keynote is, in order to be a really good white hat security professional, you need to learn the black arts. And he put it in the context of Star Wars, apropos for me, and it was well received because they're looking at this guy. I mean, there were like teenagers, there were teenagers in the audience watching a 9-year-old present to them about cybersecurity. So in that kind of invokes this kind of enthusiasm that they may not have had before. They might have had a curiosity, but this really kind of gets them going, and they're like, if he can do this, I can do this. And along the same vein, I don't know if you guys ever heard of Austin Valesky. He was our keynote in Chicago this year. Yeah, I never really heard of him either. But if you ever played the game Impossible Rush, a couple years ago, it was like the number 16 most popular game in the Apple App Store. He and another teenager, he was about, I think, 14 or 15 when he created it. They just, Saturday afternoon, the other kid sent him a video, here's an idea for a game. Austin wrote the code, published it. Within a month, 100,000 downloads. Some marketing company came up to them. We want to buy this from you. So most adults would like dream of that, but for a teenager, it's kind of gobsmacking because you just don't expect it, and you're kind of excited that people are using your app. But then when someone wants to buy it, you're like, what do we do? Because you don't know how to negotiate that kind of stuff. And once it was in the hands of the marketing company, it took off. And since then, I think Austin's now 16. He's still in high school, and he gets like consulting jobs for web UI design. He flies to Israel. He's been flown out to Google and Apple's headquarters, and he gives keynote presentations, not just for us. That's how I met him. He was at some other student and technology event in Illinois, and it's like, this kid's awesome. So the idea behind having him present is not just because he was awesome, and he was a really nice, polite kid. He was like, very cool kid. Just hearing his presentation, I wanted to make iOS apps. And I've done a few little hacks here and there, but I'm like, God, this is odd. I want to do this. If he could do this, I can do this. So then I like to put myself into other people's shoes. I go, well, what if I'm like a 10-year-old watching his presentation? Because they were 10-year-olds. There were a lot of middle school kids, 11, 12. And what if they wanted to learn how to make an iOS app? But they go home. Their parent runs Windows. You can't run Xcode on Windows. You could try to make a Hackintosh, but it doesn't always work. Really, not too many choices, and all of that inspiration and passion just kind of flies away. And then they get bummed out, and computers suck until they decide to play Clash Royale or something. Or Pokemon Go. Then they want to make an app again, but they don't know how to, and their parents don't know how to. So what we did this year in Chicago is Austin gave his talk in the morning, and then after lunch, he did a 2-hour workshop on how to just build a calculator app. You got to start somewhere. But they loved it because it really kind of reinforced what he talked about. It gave him an opportunity to learn, and it was very, very well received. So that's kind of some of the stuff we do. We like to talk about it and then do it. How many times you guys go to a con, you watch somebody talk about a tool or something like, yeah, I want to go use it, and you never really do. I know that happens to me every con I go to. So we want to be able to give the kids the opportunity to do that. And we did that also in Chicago every year. Activity stations, I'll be briefer on this. Here it was a STEM project to build a catapult out of popsicle sticks, glue gun, paper, plastic spoon, and rubber bands. And all we gave them was a picture. No step-by-step instructions. Here's a picture. And some of it had some build challenges, which were kind of obfuscated by the back of the picture because you couldn't rotate it because it's just two-dimensional. And they had to figure some of that out. Like, if I glue the crossbars on, how do I wrap the rubber band around a crossbar and attach a spoon if it's already glued to posts? They had to figure that out first and then glue the piece on. But not all of them did, but that's okay. You can still kind of get around it. And what I thought was really awesome was a lot of them built their project and then had competitions on who could send like a ball of paper the furthest. And then they would tweak their project a little better to have it send something further. Now, while that sounds very academic, like very baseline, what are we teaching them? Teaching them how to build, like a little R&D, test, and then go back and do a little more R&D. And that's what engineering is about. It's not you build it and it works the first time. You know, you go through a Lego kit. Who's ever built a Lego the first time, a complicated Lego project, and they didn't get like a piece backwards and you have to like reverse it? Very few people. But this is much more complicated, and a lot of them did a very good job, and they had fun with it too. Other things, yeah, that's the STEM station. And because of the scouting part, I'm also, I don't know if you know the STEM Nova program. It's just part of scouting, another way to have more STEM involved with scouting. Just if the kids did the project, then they'd get some credit towards that. But this is what that looked like. Workshops, talked about that. Python for Kids, and before you think, hey, isn't that already copywritten by No Starch Press? They're a sponsor of ours and a supporter, and I did get written approval to use that term. So yes, I follow the law. By the way, I don't really do an introduction of myself during this talk, but my background is not only in IT and InfoSec, but it's also accounting and a little bit of law. So I usually kind of check things out and make sure everything's above board before I do it, because I don't like the fallout, and I like to keep everything, I like to sleep peacefully at night. So here, we did the Python for Kids, and we took some of these exercises right out of the book, because we have the books, we give them away as prizes, but we wanted to just begin with basic stuff. There's Hello World and some lists and just doing basic input, like what's your name and printing it out, just very, very rudimentary things. And then we started to give them challenges, like the Dizzy Turtle. Basically a for loop, just to kind of go around and draw it. But then they changed the speed, or they tried to do different things that were fun, which was cool. And then the favorites, kind of build two lists and merge them. And then Fibonacci series. That's hard for some adults, but we put that in there just to see if there's anyone a bit more advanced and they really wanted to kind of push themselves and create that algorithm. So what we try to do, it looks a little paltry, we have a library online on our website, h4kidz.com. Go to the library. A lot of the stuff that I talk about, we try to get it up there. We have like, we had the first year how to build a Minecraft server. We wanted to teach them Linux, and they wanted to play Minecraft. Boom. Bring in a VM or a VM host. Spun up about 13 guests. They had their own box. They built the Minecraft server, and they played Minecraft when they were done. Those notes are right there. That link still works. All the instructions are still current, and you can, if your kids have like a VM in the cloud, running Linux, whatever, CentOS, Ubuntu, have them build a Minecraft server. Teaches them to install Java, fun stuff like that. And all the crypto challenges, not all, a lot of the crypto challenges, they're just images, so they click a link, they'll have the image. Did that intentionally because I didn't want them to just be able to copy base 64 and drop it in a decoder. I want them to have to like handwrite it or type it out. And some prezos. So we need to update stuff of what we've been doing this year. Part of the incentive the idea, we talked about incentives earlier, have them do things, reward them. Our CTF is really participatory based, and as long as they're doing a lot more activities, they receive an opportunity to win a prize in a drawing at the end of the day. So for example, we just kind of give them like a little Hack for Kids business card, hole punch it when whoever is teaching them something about a Raspberry Pi or snap circuits or whatever, and then that's the number of drawings they get. And we just have a Python script that puts like, Bob, six chances, and then it just goes and randomly grabs them, and everybody gets a chance to win once. So this snap circuit kit was donated by the company called Alinco that created snap circuits. Fortunately, they're nearby. They're in Wheeling, Illinois, which is very close to me, so I got to go check out their warehouse, which if you're into hardware and soldering, it was like paradise. This place was phenomenal. But they donated a bunch of kits, which we have here for tomorrow, and some prizes. And this right here was like about $175 retail. And that was a prize. So when you consider what we charge, $43 for the kids to enter, about $25 for the parents. If you win, No complaints. The parents are like thrilled. Actually was thanked by the parent when his kid picked that because he's like, now I don't have to go buy that for my kid. This is awesome because he played with the snap circuit and he's like, I want it. And that one you can build into an AM and FM radio, which is actually pretty cool. No Starch gives us books, so we donate books. We also have coupons, so if you pick up any of those flyers, they're still out on the table. Get a discount also on some books, not just kids' books. The Arduinos, we like to give out hardware, so we have a Kona kit. So the full Raspberry Pi 3 Kona kit, where we've given out Arduinos. The Kano kit, which is the bigger one with the keyboard and the speaker, kind of like your own Raspberry Pi computer. We've been giving those away as well. We just don't have one for tomorrow. But we like to give them some hardware. If it's tangible, it feels like you really won something. Speaking of that, who knows what this is? It's one of my favorite toys. It's the DC DarkNet badge. So if you go to dcdark.net, and now is actually probably a pretty good time to go, because it's right before DEF CON, usually about a month before, they reactivate the daemon. And if you like these kinds of challenges, I mean, even my 10-year-old, he started doing these a couple years ago, and it's just basic stuff, right? It's just decoding something that has like a simple Caesar cipher, or converting hex to something else. And you build points, but they also have in their hardware hacking village the DC DarkNet badge, which is about $25, and it's a solder kit. So this is the one that I put together, and it's lit up on the top, but they got some like LED SMDs that you just kind of solder and put on the back. But if you look at the bottom, there's transmit and receive LEDs, and the badges talk to one another, which is pretty cool. And that was a part of the challenge, because the more badges you associate with, the more points you get, and the USB connector at the top, you're supposed to plug that in and then figure out how to get that off and enter those flags. So it's a pretty cool kit, but even that, it's like an Arduino Dually and a Lenovo chip that's there that I see, and that is supposed to have a sketch on there for a TV Be Gone. So if you don't know what a TV Be Gone is, it's basically you push some buttons at Best Buy and you see the TV go off. You kind of move position in the store, wait for them to turn them all back on, and then turn it off again. Just kind of a little trolling, harmless fun for you, not them. It's basically teaching them to just deactivate the IR on the TV, But the kids were all like, I want it. They kind of like the idea of the trolling. But it also was like when a idle state, it was blinking a message in Morse code. It does a bunch of things. On the back of it, behind the battery holder, was like another encoded message. So it's a bunch of things on there. They still have them. Very hard to get. If you're going to DEF CON, try and get it on Thursday, because if you wait till Saturday, there's going to be no more. And they donate them to us. They've donated probably around 12 or 13 so far. The kids love them. They pick them up, and their parents are like, what am I supposed to do with this? The parents, some of them don't know how to solder. So take them to DEF CON, or take them someplace where there's going to be a hardware hacking village, and then have them solder it up. But yeah, it's a fun prize. I talked a lot about that, sorry. Gift cards too, not very exciting as far as a picture, but we usually have some, who doesn't like cash? So, we do stuff with that as well. Like, we're going to do a sumo bot tournament tomorrow. Kids are going to build some sumo bots, battle. Whoever wins the most battles or gets the most points by the end of that session, they'll get like a $25 gift card. They can go and buy some Pokemon backpack or something. Pokemon Go. How am I doing on time? Oh, I'm doing all right. So I talked about the safe and secure online. Oh, sorry. This section is, how do we know what we're doing is working? It's really hard to know. We do surveys. I'll show you that in a minute. But with the safe and secure online presentation, with the anti-cyberbullying, I got to tell you, my oldest son, he sat through 8 or 9 of these presentations since he was about 6 years old. He gets it. But even he fell prey to online cyberbullying from his friend's friend on a Minecraft server. And it wasn't necessarily him. It was my middle kid that was being picked on, and they destroy each other's creations. That's how they troll one another, or they grief. That's the slang in Minecraft. And my older son, who made me proud, was defending his younger brother. which is what we teach them. Kind of take away the audience of the bully, and then the bully has no real reason to bully anymore. Because they're doing it because they want other people to make them feel good, because they pick on someone, they laugh, they feel good, they pick on them more, they laugh more, and that makes a bully. You take that element out, they have no motivation. And my son was trying to do that, but for whatever reason, they started picking on him, and he overreacted, punched his display, and completely cracked his laptop display. So, not good. So we're teaching them the right things, but even when they get very frustrated, they're heat of the moment, and they get angry, it's hard to know how successful we are. And a lot of times we don't get that kind of feedback. So we're trying. It's very hard. So we do a lot of surveys. Surveys are hard too. I'm trying to get better at this. But in this particular case, I don't know if you guys can read that. So that first one right there, how many Hack the Kids attended, including this one, circle 1? So when I asked my 8-year-old at the time, or 9, he said, well, it means how many Hack the Kids you went to, and just circle a number, because by then we've only had 3. Yeah. When my wife, she read it as, well, how many people are you bringing, or how many people are attending Hack for Kids? And I was like, damn, I should have had you read this first. Because I had people literally write in the number 4 and circle it. It wasn't a choice. They made it a choice. So the data normalization is a big problem, because they're now filling out a survey for 4 kids who had 4 different opinions, but it's one response. What do I do with that? I don't know how accurate it is. Is it an average? I don't know. Unfortunately, nobody put anything for gender. They all left male and female. They didn't add anything there special. That was good. But even other problems, let's see here. Come on, Prezi. So like these top 2, we had 2 workshops. You could only attend 1. I had people fill in both. What do I do with that? Which one's right? I can't hunt them down because they don't put their name on it, because we want to keep it anonymous, right? So, and it goes on and on and on. Some people just kind of filled in 4, 5, 4, 5, 4, 5, 4, 5. That doesn't help us. So we've moved to like SurveyMonkey, which you're probably like, why don't you just do that in the beginning? Well, when you put a piece of paper in front of somebody and say, fill this out, and then when you're done, we're going to do prizes, there's an incentive. But if you send them an email, hey, answer these questions, even I know it's a week later, you don't get all the answers. I think I've had 6 people so far respond from our Chicago event, which was 2.5 weeks ago. So it's like, what do you do with that data? It's a smaller representation of the population. You try. Now, this is really my weak attempt at creating an infographic when infographics are cool. So please be kind. Looking back at 2015, kind of give you some numbers. We had 53 kids registered. 53 kids showed up. That's pretty cool. That is really cool. Our first year we had 40 registered, and we had 38 show up. Now, if we made it free, like the state of Illinois wants us to do in order to recognize this as a true charity and actually, making a charitable effort to the community, we would get probably 150, 200 people registered and still probably have 50 people show up. But we would order 200 sandwiches. We would order 200 shirts. We would get 200 badges, but there's no state of Illinois saying, well, we'll make up the difference. So it's something we have to do. Nominal fee, it's below our cost, but you could see the attrition's very low. Gender breakdown. So of the 53 that attended, 39 were boys. You could tell by the color blue. Maybe I should use pink, but the girls were 14. That have previously attended a Hack for Kids. The first line with 36, that was their first. So last year, our second year doing this in Chicago, we had a lot of new attendees, new participants. The 2 and 2, that was their second time attending a Hack for Kids. And the one boy was obviously my son, or maybe not so obviously, who went to every event with me, and he went to 3. It's kind of interesting. And then the age range, because This is another hard thing. I see some of these events that they're for 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds. That takes a lot more one-on-one time. Because with my 4-year-old, and even when he was 3, and we were using the game called Robot Turtles, they basically teach programming and kind of logic and flow control, like stuff like that. It's a physical board game. He loves it, but it's a lot of one-on-one time. So it's kind of hard to do that with what we do. So we kind of play with that, and do we want to maybe reduce the older age? Like, do we want to make it maybe 8 to 13? And then we can have more things kind of gauged in that range. But we still get enough kids that are teenagers, but our sweet spot's really like 8 to 12 years old. So late elementary school and middle school. Now, the activity stations I mentioned before, I kind of just mentioned a couple. The most popular was the Technology Destruction Village, where they get to take tech apart and look at it. But they don't just get to destroy it and move on. They have to identify components. I got 5? That's cool. Other people had the idea of, well, why don't we have them take the parts and glue gun and build something new, which is fine, because then I don't have to take it to an e-recycling plant, which is great for me. But, you know, what else could we do with it? And we avoid mercury. But old tech. But most popular was the Technology Destruction Village. The most attended, the Lockpick Village, because who doesn't like to pop a lock? One kid in the survey only popped handcuffs and nothing else, which makes you wonder what their future career might be in. Not law enforcement. So in the LPV, we had 20 kids actually go of the 53. Of that, we had, what is that? 12 pop 5 pins, 2, 4, 6, 8, 6 pop 6 pins, which is really impressive. I don't think I could do 6 pins, and I know I could do 5. And then 9 did cuffs. The colors of the individual kids really don't mean anything. In the network security section, which is Wireshark and comparing Telnet versus SSH and HTTP to HTTPS, we had 7 of 9 kids do all the exercises, and then another 7 actually tried to do the hidden file challenge, which was essentially reading through the traffic in a PCAP to find the link to the image, pull down the image, and then there's your prize. You know, congratulations, you found, you know, because very simple for, you know, people doing CTFs, but a challenge for someone who's never ever looked at Wireshark before. Python for Kids, we had 10 attend, and of the 10, all of them did all the exercises, or sorry, did exercises up to number 3. 2 completed the challenges up to 2. Nobody was able to do the Fibonacci series. Probably when they saw the word Fibonacci, they just stopped. I don't know, but those metrics are hard. And kind of going back to surveys, we want to try to change the model to a way that we get more of this information. Like, did they go to Fibonacci series, try to do it, and then what happened? Like, you know, why did they stop? Because as educators, we need to know this stuff. And then Spy Math, 12 kids attended, 7 of the 8, that's 7 did 7 of the 8 challenges. And 2 actually did proofs. We had 2 8-year-olds, so the teacher teaching them on this, they were learning more about how to prove math, which was really not a part of the program. He just kind of took the initiative and he was like, let me show you how to prove this out. And they got it. And he was like, oh my God, I taught these kids proofs. Proofs, they were 8. I'm like, awesome, but just kind of gauge it, because not all of them are ready for that. But the guy is a math genius, and he was super thrilled. Technology Destruction Village, 14 kids attended, and what is that, 5 kids identified 7 components, because they got to go and, like, this is a resistor, this is a capacitor, and it looked like all of them identified the capacitor. Some of the comments, too, on those sheets that we got back, you can read this for yourself. You know, while we might argue in the industry, there's still a gender bias, and there's not an equal number of people in gender. Everyone has their own opinion on that. We don't have an actual split, but you could see 39 and 14. What is that? Like 75 to 25%, maybe 60-40, something like that. And I don't think it has really anything to do with gender. I think it's just awareness. Because I went to my 2nd graders class, taught them a course, like half hour. History of computers, and let me answer some of your technical questions. And then I handed out flyers. literally that day, one of the girls went home, gave it to her parents, and she was registered for Hack for Kids. So I think there's an interest. I don't know. I don't know why. I think it's just a matter of time, like everything else. Lastly, we hit the top of the mountain. If you're interested, go to the website. Maybe we can organize one in your area. Hopefully you got something out of this about hacking the next generation. Here's some Twitter handles. Something happened to the bird. Oh, there it goes. Links to like Roots Asylum and Hack Kids and the ISC Squared, and the link to the page with the form. And I also want to thank Mobile Iron, my employer, for sponsoring my travel, because that makes me able to come out here and talk to you nice folks. But if you have any questions, I think I could take some questions. Yeah. We don't really believe in having a structured program like when they go to school, school tells them what they have to learn. We want them to learn the way they want to learn, and we want them to do it however they feel comfortable. So for example, if they walk in and they're like, oh my God, there's 8 tables to choose from, I don't know where to begin, and when they actually look at the table, they might see snap circuits and just go. So they get to choose. And there's somebody to kind of take them through the exercises and challenges. Or they might just see somebody sitting there with a laptop and these little tiny computers, Raspberry Pis, and a little servo motor, and they might, that looks kind of cool. Tomorrow, we're doing it a little differently, just because we didn't get enough volunteers. We're actually going to go more through series, kind of traditional classroom style, just because it takes a lot of bodies to do that. But yeah, it's really up to them. And with the laptop, we do have an online CTF. So ctf.hackforkids.com. Even if you're not a kid and you want to do the challenges, that's fine. You got to be present to win. And if you go, yeah, I won, that's me, and you're like over the age of 17, you're disqualified from a prize. You can still brag that you won and you beat a bunch of kids, but that's up to you. Yeah, tough guy. What's your next question? I'm going to break this down for the next speaker, but I can take questions.